All right, today we're diving deep, literally, to explore one of the coolest questions in all of biology. How does life pull off the impossible? We're going to be looking at the incredible biological toolkits that let organisms not just survive, but totally thrive in some of the most brutal environments on our planet. So, let's get right into it.
So let's kick things off with a bit of a puzzle. The underwater world, it's a place of insane extremes. We're talking about crushing pressure that would pancake a car, temperatures that are close to freezing, and a darkness so total it's pretty much outer space, but wet. So with all that going against it, how in the world has life managed to flourish in every single corner of the ocean?
Well, just take a look at a creature like this ice fish. It lives in the freezing cold southern oceans, sometimes as deep as 2,000 meters. This guy is a living, breathing example of nature's genius. It's just one of countless organisms that have come up with these unbelievable solutions to what should be life-ending problems.
The secret to their survival comes down to one powerful concept: adaptation. These are the special traits, whether they're physical parts or specific behaviors, that give an organism a real edge. And to make sense of it all, we can kind of break these incredible survival tools into three main categories.
First up, we've got structural adaptations. Think of these as the physical hardware, all the changes to an organism's body, its shape, its parts, its whole design, that make it a perfect fit for where it lives.
You know the classic fish shape? That's the perfect example. Its body is streamlined, so it can just slice through the water with almost no effort. Its fins, they're like rudders and propellers, letting it steer and move. And the gills? I mean, they're an absolute masterpiece of engineering, built to pull oxygen right out of the water.
And this is where it gets really fascinating. Look at these two. On the left, a fish. On the right, a dolphin, a mammal. They're on completely different branches of the evolutionary tree, but evolution guided them to the exact same design, that sleek, torpedo-shaped body. And why? Because it's hands down the most efficient way to move through water.
But that makes you wonder, right? If a normal fish is already so perfectly built for water, what happens when you turn the difficulty level all the way up? How do those physical tools have to change to handle the mind-bending pressure and total darkness of the deep sea?
But you know, having the right body is only half the story. Survival isn't just about what an organism is, it's also about what it does. And that leads us perfectly into our next type, behavioral adaptations. This is where actions speak louder than words.
So, behavioral adaptations. These are all about actions and strategies. Some of them are instincts, just hardwired into their DNA and passed down for generations. Others can actually be learned. But either way, they're all about helping that organism get by in its world a little better.
If you want a fantastic example, just think about the epic migration of salmon. This is a powerful, inherited behavior. They're driven by this deep instinct to travel for hundreds, sometimes thousands of miles, from the freshwater streams where they're born, out to the saltwater ocean to grow, and then all the way back to the exact same stream to have their own young.
And it's not always about these massive journeys. Think about whales. In the huge, dark expanse of the ocean, they use these incredibly complex songs and clicks to talk to each other, to find their way around, and to hunt together over enormous distances where their eyes would be totally useless. It's a behavior that's absolutely essential for their survival.
So, this really makes you think on a bigger scale. What's the real connection between the journey of one single animal, like one salmon, fighting its way upstream, and the survival of its entire species for generations to come? It's this powerful link between what one individual does and the success of the whole group.
And that brings us to our final category, and this one might be the most mind-blowing. For this, we have to look past the body's shape and its actions. We need to go inside to see the incredible chemistry and internal mechanics at work.
These are called physiological adaptations. They're all about the organism's internal machinery, its metabolism, its body chemistry, all the special processes happening on the inside that allow it to function when the conditions outside are trying to shut it down.
The viperfish is an absolute master of this. Down in the deep, it has a flexible skeleton and super strong arteries so it doesn't get crushed by all that pressure. It's also got blood that's packed with extra hemoglobin so it can get by in water where there's barely any oxygen.
So, if you're dealing with immense pressure and hardly any oxygen, what's the most useful superpower you could have? Well, the answer is these internal adjustments. They really are like biological superpowers, perfectly fine-tuned to tackle whatever challenge the environment throws at them.
Okay, let's zoom in on one physiological challenge that affects almost every aquatic creature out there, from a tiny amoeba all the way up to a huge shark. And that's the constant, non-stop battle to keep the water levels inside their bodies just right.
This whole problem comes down to a force called osmotic pressure. Now, in simple terms, water always wants to balance things out. It naturally moves from a less salty area to a more salty area, trying to even out the concentration on both sides of a membrane like a cell wall.
Now, this creates two totally opposite problems. If you live in fresh water, the water around you is less salty than your cells, so water is constantly rushing in, threatening to make your cells swell up and burst. But if you're in salt water, the ocean is more salty, so it's constantly trying to pull water out of your cells, putting you in danger of dehydrating.
And here's the brilliant solution for freshwater life. A tiny organism like an amoeba has this little thing called a contractile vacuole. You can think of it like a tiny automatic sump pump that's working 24/7, just constantly bailing out the extra water to keep the cell from exploding. It's amazing.
Now, saltwater fish have the opposite problem and an equally incredible solution. To keep from drying out, they do something that sounds completely backwards. They drink tons of seawater. Then they use their specialized kidneys and special cells in their gills as these powerhouse filters, actively pumping all that extra salt right back out into the ocean.
So, we've looked at the body's design, the clever actions, and the internal machinery. Let's pull all the way back now and look at the big picture. What does all of this really tell us about the story of life in the water?
Well, we've seen that to survive, every single aquatic organism has this amazing toolkit with 3 different kinds of adaptations. The structural ones are the physical tools. The behavioral ones are the strategies, or maybe the instruction manual. And the physiological ones, they're the internal engine that powers the whole show.
So, the most important thing to take away from all this is that nothing in biology is random. Every fin, every migration, every little chemical reaction inside a cell is an elegant solution to a really tough problem. And that leaves us with one final thought to chew on. The next time you look at any creature, ask yourself, what incredible stories of survival is it telling you, just by existing?